Good morning, Acquisto Real Estate. This is Lydsey Monahan. I'm a preferred partner here with Acquisto Real Estate, and I am a financial educator and a financial advisor with WealthWave. We are the How Money Works company. And so this morning, I just wanted to give you 3 examples of ways that I can be of assistance to you with your clients and getting them to the closing table. So I know that all of your clients end up working with a mortgage broker in some form or fashion. The only exception to that would be if they bring cash to the table. And so I'm going to tell you that in both those ways, I can help you with your clients. So first and foremost, it's important to know that a mortgage broker is going to go through basically your client's balance sheet with them or their net worth statement. And through the course of that discovery, they're going to find out what type of assets your client has, what they don't have, what kind of debts they have, all that good stuff. Now, I'm not saying that I want to be involved in that process at all, but what I am saying is if your clients need a little help getting to the closing table with cash, or they know that they're going to be a little strapped during the closing transition from moving one place to another, maybe they've gone through a relocation, they know that they're going to be buying a new home here, and they're going to need access to some cash in creative ways. So that's where I can come in and help. So number 1, I want to talk about what's listed as a preferred asset on any balance sheet. And we don't talk about it in terms of being a preferred asset, but it truly is. And here's why. So we're talking about permanent life insurance. So a permanent life insurance policy, each and every one of those is going to hold a cash value inside that plan. What it means is it's an account that your client has access to, where they can borrow money from their plan or sometimes even surrender part of the face value to get to. Now, the loan rates on those are usually very low, but the interest is paid back to the client's own account. So they're not paying the life insurance company, they're not paying a bank, they're paying themselves back, okay? So that's the first thing there. The second thing is, a lot of times if they've had that policy in force for an extended period of time, there's gonna be a significant amount of cash there. And so I wanna give you an example of this. So a couple of years ago, I had a client come to me who had an existing life insurance policy that had been in force for an extended period of time. I'm talking like 30 plus years. So this gentleman came to me and said, hey, I want to know a little bit more about my policy. I want to see if I could take a loan against the cash value to be able to buy this property. Okay, no problem. Let's take a look at it. So he brought me his statement. And at first glance, I kind of went and was a little shocked, but this policy is so old and was so heavily funded that he had over $500,000 in this cash value of this life insurance plan. Awesome. Absolutely, we can access that. What are you looking to do? Well, he told me that he was looking to buy a commercial property in downtown Dallas, and he wanted to take as much cash to the table as possible because it was a competitive bid situation, and he wanted to make sure that he got the property. No problem. So we talked through what the list price was and what he really wanted to do as far as an offer goes, and we were able to pull out $500,000 in cash that he could take to the table for this property. Now, we had done this far in advance enough of the transaction that he was able to access the cash before being in the conversation at financing time. So he had the cash on hand and didn't have to disclose where the money was coming from ahead of time. Make sense? Now, if you're in the middle of that real estate transaction, you do have to disclose where the cash is coming from, and they'll see that they're pulling it from a life insurance policy. Not a big deal. Just an additional disclosure that your client's probably going to have to account for in their with their mortgage broker. But moral of the story here is he was the only person that brought a full cash offer to that table on that property, and therefore he got it. So that's a way that a mortgage broker is going to see that a client has a life insurance policy. They may or may not ask about the cash value, and that's how you know you're working with a good mortgage broker or not. If they ask about cash value, they know and understand that. If not, then they would never know that there's that kind of cash sitting off to the side that your client could have access to. So that's a big thing. So cash value life insurance. The second thing is, I know that we've had a lot of relocations to the area. And so I want to talk through the 401k and IRA options that we have available to clients. So if your client is over the age of 59 and a half, they can of course access their 401k money without penalty from the IRS, without any additional fees or taxes on that. They will pay taxes in excess of what their basis is in the plan, but they have access to that value in their plan without having to pay additional penalties on it. If they're under 59 and a half, they still have some options in order to grab some of that money out of their 401k account, be able to pay themselves back over time because now they can have it withdrawn out of their paycheck. Or they also have the ability just to take a temporary loan from their 401k plan. Now, very specific to each individual 401k plan. Again, this is something a mortgage broker is going to ask your client about. So they're going to know that this asset exists there for a client. But most of the time, a mortgage broker isn't going to go any deeper into that conversation with them because they don't understand the ins and outs of what options a client has available to them. Okay, so I want to talk through each of those with you this morning. So I've been with a company. I have a 401k plan there. Let's say I have a couple $100,000 sitting in there in that 401k plan. I just moved and I'd like to use some of that money for my down payment. Not a problem. If this is the first time that you're buying a home, you have access to what's called first-time home buyers. First-time home buyers exemption. So you can borrow money from the plan and there's not additional taxes or fees. You can do that penalty-free. So I know a lot of the times our clients are not people that are first-time homeowners. That's awesome, not a problem. They still have options with their 401k plan. So next thing would be if they're under 59 and a half and they still would like to borrow money from their 401k plan to use for the down payment in their home, not a problem at all. What we would need to do in that case is, again, make sure that it's something that they can do and can access in their 401k plan, figure out what amount they want to take out of their 401k plan, and then come up with a plan for them to repay that within a specific amount of time. And that varies based on plans. So as an example, I had a client very recently who needed to take some money out of their 401k plan in the form of a lump sum to use as a down payment. So they did that. They took the money out, but the plan required that if we took a loan out, it had to be back in the plan within the first 45 days. Not a problem for them at all because they put the money down and then in a very short period of time, they were going to be able to access the cash from another asset to be able to cover that and put that money back in the 401k plan. So in that case, it worked really well for that client. Not an issue at all. So few options that are available in the 401k plan. One, if they're over 59 and a half, they can access that cash without penalty, sometimes without additional taxes being taken out. It just depends on the plan and what they have going on there. Second thing, they can use the first-time home buyers assistance, which gives them an exemption from any taxes or penalties with the IRS. And then the third one is they can actually take a loan from their 401k plan. Again, plan specifics involved in all of these as to how they can borrow from the plan and then return the money to it. But I can work through that with your clients as well to make sure they have a full understanding of that. And then the third way that I can help is, again, a mortgage broker is going to see on the balance sheet that a client may have an annuity or some type of other investment asset. In those cases, there are going to be individual rules for each type of plan, and it's going to vary based on which company they have it with. But I can dig a little deeper and say, you know what, you have an annuity. It's not tied to a company pension plan. Let's investigate it and see what we can do. Most annuities today offer a 10% withdrawal that's without penalty to them, especially if they're over 59 and a half. They can access that cash at any point in time. So that's another situation where mortgage broker is going to see the asset on the balance sheet. They may not know the ins and outs of the plan, and they definitely can't help your client access that. But that is some place where I can step in as a financial advisor and help them walk through that process, make sure they fully understand the implications of using those assets, and hopefully bring them to the closing table in a much better place for you. This morning, I wanted to share a little bit more about what exactly do I do with clients and how can I be of help to you guys. So I just kind of want to walk you through the process that I go through with each and every client that I meet with. So I'm going to share my screen and walk you through a little whiteboard activity. I know, right? Hopefully this all goes well and technology cooperates. But this is part of the conversation that I have with my clients. And so I wanted to make sure that you guys all understood and knew what it is that I do and how I help clients. Okay, so first and foremost, when I'm sitting down with a client, they understand that we're probably going to go through what's called a financial needs analysis. And during the course of this conversation, We're going to talk about what their goals are for the future as regarding their finances, and really just what their goals are in general in the future, because pretty much any goal that you come up with is going to have a financial impact of some sort. And so we want to make sure that we come up with a financial plan to get them to their goals. But part of that is finding out where they are now and then building a roadmap to where they want to be. So we always talk about the fact that when you're working with a client, there's a giant circle, and this circle represents their total income into the household. So all the income from any streams that they have, this circle represents all of that income. And for most individuals here in America, most households in America, you can take this circle and you can cut it in half. And on this side of the line, you're going to have their household expenses. So these are things like their water bill, their power bill, day-to-day mortgage, all that stuff goes in there, right? Then we're going to cut this other half in half, because at the top of this, most Americans pay today half of their remaining half, or a quarter of their total income, in taxes. So that is what goes in that box. Then on the bottom part of this is where most Americans have a significant amount of debt. And so this image here really depicts what a typical American household looks like today. Of their total income, one half of it goes to covering their household expenses. The other half is divided between debt and taxes. Now, very rarely we'll find that some people have this little bitty sliver here of this wonderful stuff that we call savings. So I'm going to write this on here so you can kind of see this. And so this is pretty much what your typical American household looks like as far as what do they spend their income on, okay? Well, what we do at WealthWave is we take a look at this whole picture. And yes, we're going to go through and we're going to try and help them identify opportunities where household expenses can be reduced, or maybe take some things off their plate. Most likely though, a lot of Americans aren't going to be able to do this successfully. So that is rarely a conversation we get into unless there's just something that's extremely glaring that stands out. Example of that would be, I was working with a client actually at the end of last year, and he told me that his monthly liquor budget was $1,000 a month. And I was like, whoa, really? Like, that's the highest amount I've ever heard in that category. And then he explained to me why. They weren't paying for cable at home. So anytime he wants to watch a game, he goes to a bar. And while he's at the bar, he has a couple of drinks, he eats some food, whatever. And so his monthly alcohol bill, which also included some food and beverages at the bar, totaled up to over $1,000 a month. So through the course of these conversations with him, we're able to lower some of his household expenses. They pay for cable now, which is a huge trade-off, but his bar bill is way lower. So to each their own, but that's just an example of how we would go about reducing household expenses if something is just incredibly out of whack. The next thing that we really try and do is we always start off with an education for our clients too. So after we go through and we identify, okay, what are your goals? Where are you now? Where do we need to be in the future? Now we're going to start talking about and making sure that they're financially educated. And so the first step of that is I share with all of my clients this book called How Money Works. And I know it seems really elementary. Oh, I know how money works. Well, if you're like most Americans, you probably don't. You've never really been taught, because only 21 out of the 50 states in America actually teach high schoolers financial literacy of any sort. And it's probably not even a course on its own. It's probably wrapped up in a home economics class, maybe a math class, something like that. But it's not a core curriculum item. So at WealthWave, we actually developed this book and a whole financial literacy package to go along with this. So as a part of this, I teach them money concepts and financial literacy concepts. But this book is a huge part of it. And as you can see, it's written comic book style so that a 10-year-old could understand this and read it. For most adults, it's about a 45-minute to an hour-long read. So it goes by really quickly. And then throughout the process, they're learning and being educated along the way. So now we're talking about, okay, what do we do with this side of the circle? How do we make this savings amount bigger for clients? Well, there's a few things that we do. So one, through our education process, you're going to find some ways to reduce the number of taxes that you're paying, and also take a look at some of your debts. And so in essence, what we're helping them do is make this savings bucket quite a bit bigger. And we're doing so in ways that they're common in the financial industry, but again, not many people are educated in personal finance, and so they probably aren't even aware of some of the things that we can cover. But this is where we'll get into discussions about how to leverage tax advantage, tax deferred type of savings and investment plans, and then also looking at debt reduction plans as well. So a common outcome from a client meeting with me is going to be, number one, we're going to sit down, identify their goals, figure out where they are now with personal finances, where they want to be in the future, and how to bridge that gap. The second thing that they're going to walk away from just in an initial meeting with me is they're going to walk away with a budget spreadsheet. So if they're not keeping track of a budget, which a lot of people are not, they'll walk away from a first meeting with me having a budget in hand, and they will also have a net worth statement. I think those things are really important and really critical in working with clients. And then from there, we'll develop this plan or a plan similar to this that works for them and their household in order to achieve their financial goals. So just wanted to make you all aware that those are the types of services that I offer. It is important for you to know that I do not charge planning fees. So every single person that I meet with, I sit down with them and I do have the initial consultation meeting with them for absolutely free. I don't charge them for meeting with me at any point during the process. The only way that I actually make an income off of working with clients is if they purchase a product or service with me. That's it. So please leverage me and make me available to your clients as a resource. If they don't have a financial professional that they're working with, I'd be more than happy to help them out with that. Thanks so much. Today, I'm going to be going over a concept called $1 Million Baby. And so what this is it's a way to use a financial concept or a couple of financial concepts together to help leave an inheritance for your children. And it leverages the most important asset that children have on their side, and that is time. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my screen and we'll get right into this. So this concept, again, called $1 Million Baby. I personally want to share some of my experience along the way here. This is a plan and a concept that I use for my nieces and nephews. I personally don't have any children right now, but I'm getting ready to have one, and she's going to be $1 Million Baby as well. But I personally own 4 of these plans, and we'll be putting another one into place this year for my own child. So what this is, $1 Million Baby, is really the gift of the future. It's a common sense strategy that empowers families to create a legacy for their children without having to be wealthy right now. And kind of what's driven our discussion around this is that through our research, we found that only 20% of children will receive an inheritance, which is really kind of a shame. And when you think about it, it's most likely because parents don't know how to leave their children better off than the way that they had it. They all want to do that, but they don't know how. And that's kind of where we come in. We are the How Money Works company, and we're all about teaching people financial literacy. And so this is all about rethinking how we leave legacy. There's really 2 options when it comes down to leaving a legacy for your children. And so as we go through this, I want you to think about which legacy plan is more realistic for you. Is it one, to save up money every single month so that you're accumulating $1 million in your own personal savings account to leave each of your children? That's option 1. Option 2 is it more feasible for you to grow $1 million in retirement for each child, starting with a small fraction of that when they're young? Now, either one of these options can work, but I'd be willing to bet that for most of us, option 2 is far more feasible than option 1. So we're going to talk through the pros and cons of both, and hopefully we'll get to a place where you understand which option is more clear for you and your family. So there's 3 realities when it comes to trying to leave $1 million worth of inheritance from your own personal savings to your children that make it unlikely for us to do this. The first thing is we're all living longer. And so that means that you yourself are going to need those savings to fund your own retirement. And some other factors that play along with that are that the average retiree spends about $122,000 on medical expenses because healthcare has improved, but it costs a little bit more than what it used to. We don't anticipate those costs going down either. And then the last thing is long-term care. 70% of people over the age of 65 are going to need some form of long-term care service or support. And on average, it can cost between $70,000 to $390,000 for each occurrence. So the average stay in a long-term care type of arrangement is going to be just shy of 4 years. And so those expenses can be rather hefty. And so those things in and of themselves all deplete your own personal savings that you may have accumulated throughout your lifetime, which makes it harder to leave $1 million to each child out of your own savings account. So there is a really common sense way for us to approach leaving $1 million to your children. And since it is so hard to leave that inheritance today, we need to use that greatest financial asset that your children have, and that is time. They have an entire lifetime of it, so why not take advantage of it? So we're going to pair that with these 3 financial concepts here. The first one is compound interest, or the potential of money to grow with interest paid on interest. Okay? So when you talk about compounding, it's really money that I'm putting in my savings, it's earning interest, and it's being paid interest upon interest every single day. So compound interest. That's the first concept. The second concept is the time value of money. And this just basically is that money saved today is worth more than money saved tomorrow. And think about this. Anytime that somebody asks you, when's the best time to start saving? The answer is right now, because it was yesterday or it was 5 years ago, but the best time to get started is right now. And then the last piece of this is wealth protection. So depending on how we build this plan for you, you want to make sure that you safeguard this money from being used until the future, being used until when it's needed in the future. And we do that through what's called a living trust. Now, that's a pretty advanced topic. There are ways to do it without a living trust as well, but the best way is through that. Now, we're going to talk through 2 examples. Dana and Hector are both characters from our book, How Money Works. Each of you can have a complimentary copy of this. Just shoot me an email or a text at that phone number at the bottom of the screen, and I'll get you a copy of the book for free. But could you save $1 million for your child? And we're going to talk through Dana's example and Hector's example to kind of give you an idea of the different options that are available to you. And of course, these are hypothetical, but we're going to start off with Dana. So Dana's in a financial position where she has $13,000 cash today that she can use to fund this type of plan for her child. So we're going to take a one-time $13,000 lump sum that grows from birth until age 67 for her child. And we're going to assume a 6.5% average interest rate, annual interest rate that compounds monthly in this plan. Doing so will take that $13,000 at birth and turn it into $1,442,000 at the age of 67 for that child. So very good way to leave money for your child. Now, in order to do that, you have to have that $13,000 up front, but this is an option for us. Now we're going to talk about a second time frame. So using the asset of time, Dana decides to wait until her child turns 18 to do this instead of doing it at birth. So this is to demonstrate the difference between you should have started at X time, but now you waited until today. So today her child is 18. She puts that same $13,000 lump sum into a plan that grows from age 18 to age 67, assuming that same 6.5% average annual interest rate compounded monthly. It's going to yield $311,486 for her child at age 67. So big difference. Arguably, they're both leaving her child better off than what she was, because it's still a massive amount of money that you're able to leave for your children. But 2 examples using the same lump sum amount and deposited at different times in the child's life. Now we're going to transition to Hector. So Hector's in a little bit different financial situation. He is able to come up with $2,500 today as his child is born, and then add $250 a month for 4 months to this plan, but he's not able to do the $13,000 lump sum. So how does this pan out for him? Well, we're going to take that $2,500 a month and we're going to put it in a plan today. And then we're going to start putting $250 a month into the same plan for 4 years and let it grow. We're going to assume that same 6.5% annual interest rate compounded monthly. And then here's what happens. So over the course of that time frame, Hector will have put in $14,500. And I got that number from adding the $2,500 to the $12,000. That $12,000 is $250 a month for 48 months. So when we do that, it actually yields $1,008,059 for his child at the age of 67. So even though Hector wasn't able to come up with that $13,000 lump sum all at once, he's still able to achieve his goal of leaving over $1 million to his child in retirement. Pretty cool. In our second example with Hector, we're going to structure this the same way. The only thing that changes here is time. So instead of starting at birth, we're going to wait until his child turns age 18 to start that same $2,500 lump sum plus $250 a month for 4 years. And assuming that 6.5% average interest rate compounded monthly, it's going to yield $313,857 at age 67. Again, not a bad thing, just shows the difference between doing this early, using time and leveraging, getting those doubles in, versus waiting until age 18 and having a few less doubles for that money along the way. So just to kind of bring us to a close here, according to the data from the United Nations, 250 children are born in the world every single minute. Imagine how different their lives would be if every family created a savings plan for their child that couldn't be touched until retirement. The world would be in a much different place economically, I would argue, and our children would be left in a better place. So at the end of this, what I really want you to take away from this is that there's a variety of different ways that we can structure a $1 million baby plan for you and your family. And I would love to sit down with you, meet with you personally to kind of walk through what strategy makes the most sense for you and your family. And just a reminder here, this is the difference between how suckers think, stop being a sucker, versus how the wealthy think. So thanks so much for your time today, and we'll see you later.